Got no time to wait. Hey everyone, welcome to our pre-election special and 6th episode of Keep Your Mind in Tune. This will be our last episode for a while, and we have so many incredible guests joining us today to talk about the current state of the live music industry, the pandemic, and how this election may just impact how soon we get back to seeing live music again, which is something I think we all want to do. We'll continue to make more episodes in the future, but we're going to take a little break after the election, space them out a little bit more. There was just so much we wanted to cover over these past few weeks as we launched this show. And over our break, we're going to look at turning this into a podcast moving forward, in addition to the webisodes, line up some more great guests. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, please feel free to post or message us on our socials. And though most people have been seeing the show as it streams, if you want to go back and see old episodes, specific interviews, musical performances, bonus footage, we've been setting up our new YouTube page with all of those videos available to watch now. So go to youtube.com/keepyourmindintune and subscribe, and let's get started. All right, everybody, joining me once again, Kunj Shah. Kunj, thanks so much.
How's it going? What are we talking about today? The coronavirus? I haven't heard much.
Have you heard about this?
No. Is it a new pandemic?
It's been in the news. I'm surprised you missed it.
Yeah, my parents, well, my in-laws, I consider them my parents. They dealt with the virus early on, and it's affected the entire live music industry in a way where a lot of us just don't have the information about what's going to happen. I mean, my wife works in management, and I'll overhear some calls here and there. And, I was working in management for a long time, and I talked to a lot of agents, and literally every conversation is just marked with so much uncertainty, and I know the agents that you have, and everyone's like, well, we'll book this show, but we don't know what's going to happen. So I'm really glad that, you have taken such a strong lead in this Keep Your Mind in Tune project to keep all of our minds in tune and really just, educating people in a way, whether it's on social media, because it's the only way we can get things out, but that's actually educational, because from what we're getting from the White House, even the CDC, people don't, the media, there's an article for everything that goes against, the article you read before. So the misinformation or the idea of too much information is out there. So we're not able to discern a lot. So the fact that we're able to talk to Yale professors and talk to people of, who actually do this stuff for a living has been really great.
Hey, I spend the day, I flip back and forth between CNN and Fox News and MSNBC. And it's not, even the news is not the best place to get information anymore. And so even as small as this is starting out, this could turn into something really big one day. But the point is that we are talking to experts, and occasionally there might be a political view from somebody, but the fact of the matter is these are people who are doing this, every waking hour of their day. And so sometimes the truth is unfortunately politicized nowadays. And as much
as we want to educate other people, I think the big thing that me and you really are getting from this and wanted to get from this,
we're learning.
We wanted to educate ourselves.
Yeah. If nothing else, we're getting that.
We wanted to learn from the right people who do this stuff for a living, instead of just reading headline after headline after headline and getting sucked into rabbit holes of social media, and, which I'm guilty of, and you just recently started social media like a year ago, and man, you've done a deep dive into, getting your opinions out there. And, that's,
I'm trying to learn what's worthwhile and what isn't in terms of the comment section rabbit holes, but we've discussed that.
This is the best medium, and for, at least for me and for you, and we found that this has been effective, and I hope people learn. And we got Neville, we got some really awesome guests, and we got musical performances, and I think I'm really excited for this Keep Your Mind in Tune project, and we're going to keep it going no matter what happens. And
past the election, and there's always more to be learned.
I want to use our platforms for good, and I'm really proud to have you as a partner with the same mission.
Thanks, man. Feeling is mutual. Well, should we bring our guests in?
Absolutely. The real stars of the show.
I did start this video game exercise thing called Ring Fit Adventure, which is really funny. It's pretty cool. If anyone has a Switch, you can do some crazy Pilates exercise in a video game.
You're into Pilates now, huh?
No, video game Pilates.
No, he's not.
Wait, so you're just pressing? You're only working out your thumbs?
No, this big circle thing that's like also a controller, and you like run in place, and then you go, and then you start running in place. It's got little sensors on you.
I like you doing this like with your mom and sister, like all three of you, like get remote. It has
happened that way, yes.
Whoa, Chris, where are you?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Greg, it's the Sanctum Sanctorum.
Of course, I knew immediately.
What
Doctor Strange.
What film is that one from? Okay, I can't keep up.
I either thought it was that or a TIE fighter, perhaps. Hello, everybody.
What's up?
Everyone's looking absolutely beautiful. Josh, look at you, a crazy YouTuber or something.
I have my ring light.
Is this the talk?
No, let's kick it off. Hey guys, thank you all for joining me here today.
Hi.
Hello.
When's the last time we all saw each other?
The Ivan Neville version of the game we played.
That's right. Yeah. So last time we filmed
Stay tuned. Yeah.
Our variety show, which will resume. There's a big need for levity and for some comedy, so we do have more of that coming up real soon. Tomorrow's the election, and just wanted to check in. I've been talking to a lot of different musicians actually over the last few days that are in this episode as well, and I think everyone's feeling particularly burnt out right now. Just the reality setting in of, it's going to be a while longer before we play shows, and it just feels so weird. I feel like not to be doing what we're like trained and designed to do.
Yeah.
Have any of you guys been able to play any shows recently, or has a lot of that been shut back down again?
I had a memorial for a friend, Joe Mango, that was up in Connecticut. That wasn't technically a show with people. It was a live stream at a theater in Connecticut. I had a drive-in movie theater show booked the following day. That ended up getting canceled because some guy got a DUI leaving the venue the night prior.
Jeez.
People are so afraid of any missteps with these shows that, they get canceled very easily. I had 2 canceled in late July. So it's been bone dry out there.
And it's also scary because it's like if you have a show and something happens, it's like, pushes all of the future shows even further away because it's like
scare people off.
Well, it's funny because of the way we're filming this. Tomorrow is the election, but when we're filming this, it's not yet Halloween. I'm supposed to play a show on Halloween. I hope it happens. So I think it was great.
Did you just speculate on how future / past show was?
Wow.
That's funny as hell.
I did an Everyone Orchestra show a week ago at Ardmore.
Oh yeah,
Music Hall
in Philly.
Yeah, there was 12 people, so it was mostly just for the live stream, and it was cool. It was playing with other musicians. They like doubled the size of the stage, so everyone was nice and spread out. And I definitely had the pandemic moment where I went to play a line, I forgot I had my mask on, and like couldn't. And the trumpet player Arnetta Johnson looked up, like, "Why aren't you playing?" Oh, yeah.
dumbass.
Oh yeah,
I got to do a little like soundstage recording session. It was sort of a video show for, I believe, through SF Jazz with Nikki, Egan, and Charlie, and
Nice.
a couple folks. That was my only time doing any real in-person playing, and it was awesome and euphoric as hell. But
Did a couple private backyard ones, which was kind of cool and intimate and just like outdoors, and you had to get a little rapid test to get in.
Yeah,
and playing on stage with a band again was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I have not, I'm really sad to say I have not played music with like another human being through this entire pandemic. Been invited to do a couple things, timing didn't work out, but I think I sometimes don't realize how much it kind of eats away. I mean, something I've taken for granted. I mean, I don't want to say taken for granted, but just the idea of that this would never be in question, that I'm able to do this, took it for granted in that sense. So it's tough to wrap my brain around. And Craig, you had a few instances where you were like ready to go on your way to a show and they were canceled, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had.
Not to throw anyone particularly under the bus here. I'm just saying.
No. I mean, I guess it's probably just it's worth explaining. You know, we knew by the beginning of April that Turkuaz was going to be playing for a year or more. So most of us, tried to go. Had things that came up. People were trying to make things work. So a lot of things came up. I booked many things, like just things that came my way, because that's just kind of what I was always doing when I was off the road anyway. So just reaching out, and then I'd say about 70 to 80% of them ended up getting canceled. So at a certain point, I kind of stopped looking for them.
You're preparing, you're learning tunes, you're
yeah,
traveling.
Or even just trying to think about that, whatever kind of money that was coming in, just stopped relying on it, a certain, after the eighth one that got canceled, I was like, all right, well, that's not a source of income for me anymore, Yeah,
and Sammy and I were supposed to head up to Buffalo for some of Mikey's shows, and it was just too crazy. It just couldn't happen. That stuff's pulled from right on under you.
Yeah, and it was just, scary. It's like, well, obviously, we all want to play shows desperately, but it's like, well, is it worth the risk? Is it worth our health? Is it worth possibly, getting a really big fine? Is it possible like getting sick, getting other people sick?
Yeah,
like,
that's why I had to cancel those shows. I just couldn't.
It's insane. Yeah, and it's just like, well, you know what? Like, I mean, it breaks my heart. But it's like, I don't want anyone getting sick. I don't want,
Absolutely. No, and I mean, we have on this episode, we've got representatives from NIVA and NITO. I don't know if you guys know about those two organizations, but basically representing all independent talent, which is managers, agents, artists, and then the other one representing all the independent venues. And as we know, we see some of our favorite venues closing right now. And collectively, Chris, you're wearing the shirt actually.
Yeah, I talked to Ben for a while on the phone the other day. It's so sad.
Yeah, I talked to Ben afterwards too. The Rex Theater is like one of our favorite venues in the whole country, and Ben had to close it. It's really sad. And all these things, the independent ones, the artists and the venues, when you combine all of them, I mean, that's still like a multi-billion-dollar industry that I watch TV and, they're talking about restaurants reopening and all these other things. I hear like gyms, bowling alleys, but I don't hear them talk about music, live music, and it's such a huge part of people's lives, and it's literally going to be the last thing to come back. Like sports.
Also, like the economy too. Like think about how many employees work in music venues. Exactly. What it takes to like run a music venue, and then the artists, and then like all the people who travel from out of town to your town, wherever this music venue is or festival. It's like I feel like there's a disconnect, and I feel like people people are like, oh, the arts, like whatever. But it's like, no, it's a really big part of your city's economy.
Well, and that's what luckily NIVA and NITO are both actually fighting for. They're working with Klobuchar and Schumer and even Cornyn out of Texas, who's has a bipartisan effort going with Amy Klobuchar, and so there is some amount, but they explained later on in the episode that they had to educate like Washington D.C. on like, hey, this is a huge part of your economy, and it's not, no attention is being paid. And I'm glad those restaurants are opening. I'm glad certain things are happening. But what we do, if too much stuff gets open too quickly, there's no chance, especially the type of shows that Turkuaz plays, side gigs aside, that's not going to happen till at least mid next year at the rate we're going now, if we're lucky. And so
right. And that's the thing. I just feel like people don't actually, people, in government or the higher ups, I feel like they don't realize how much goes into music venues and live music and just, that part of their economy.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we hope that, sorry, go ahead, Tay.
Well, no, I was just going to say, it seems to me too, there's kind of got to be a like with everything with this, but the stimulus money or relief money, both for venues, for all of us individually who have been on or on and off, unemployment to get through this time. There's the stimulus package side of it, and then there's also the regulatory side of it in terms of not having whatever this wave or period of time is, last as long as it, essentially how we can actually shorten the amount of cases and in tandem get the money where it needs to go to keep these venues and people like us able to, wait this out until we can get back to our careers and get back to making music for people.
Yeah. And the vaccine arriving, if it does, and whether it's December, January, whatever it is, I think a lot of people also think, oh, well, then that'll be the end of it. But no, I mean, the availability of it,
distribution,
if enough,
and
right.
Tell you what, once they shoot my arm up, I'll be right there with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, but
75, me, baby, I want to play.
75. Careful, make sure
Talking about the vaccine there, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I was gonna say,
yeah.
What's in that syringe.
I think it's this area. I don't.
But 75% or so, I think, of people need to actually take it for herd immunity to develop. Is that what you heard, Mikey?
Yeah, it's that's the one thing that I'm also sort of worried about is having an administration in place that properly educates the public about the facts about a vaccine, so that there's no questions. It comes directly from proven science that, this thing is safe, or, we have to wait, or whatever it may be. The leadership of the administration has to make the people feel comfortable as a population with moving ahead with it, or and safely getting it out to people. It's great once there's a proven vaccine, but then the government has to handle that, and that's what's important starting tomorrow is
right. The timeline. The quality with which they do that is going to dictate our timeline so much, specifically for when we can get back to it.
Yeah. So vote.
Vote up and down the ballot. Research all the candidates and see what their stance is on being committed to the implementation of the right ways to reopen, to administer the vaccine, to have testing readily available for everybody. This stuff is on the ballot. Like live music is on the ballot tomorrow. It really is. And we desperately want to play music for all of you guys. And
so badly.
Yes.
We can't right now, which is one of the most frustrating things in the world.
I was actually going to say just something, something else we hadn't really talked about, like healthcare is something that is obviously important to Americans and human beings in general. And that's something that a lot of us in our industry, in the music industry, we don't necessarily get, it's not readily available for everybody from their employers as such. A lot of like musicians' wages and what what we get paid hasn't changed in decades, really. And it's pretty antiquated. But like, you know, one of the few Turkuaz shows I've ever missed was because I had, you know, an emergency appendectomy. And, you know, had to go into like emergency surgery situation. And if it weren't for, you know, government options, you know, I would not, you know, I wouldn't be able to do what it is that I do now. And, you know, and that's something that's really important too, that maybe people don't consider. And it's not, you know, it's really important. It's something everyone needs to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I think most of us are insured through the Affordable Care Act in one way or another.
You know, we've played in, you know, other countries in the world, and, you know, they might not like a lot of things about us, but they really like our music. like the fact, you know, we can bomb a bunch of places and they're like, well, I still have Stevie Wonder, you know? Yeah. So it's like, I know that's a little bit of a crude joke, but it really means something that that is one of our most important cultural exports. And one of the reasons that our music is such a huge part of our culture around the world. And, you know, and one of the most amazing things about that, you know, this goes back, you know, probably 60, 70, maybe even 80 years of people going around this enormous country and having places to play all over the country. And we built up an infrastructure, and this became even more intense in the last 10 years as recorded revenue was going down significantly because of downloading. And our live music infrastructure is becoming decimated. By some estimates, 90% of independent venues are going to close. It's going to have a severe effect on our cultural standing in the world. So it's a real concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the, you know, the mega stars cut their teeth in small and medium regional venues. It's not like they just all of a sudden snap their fingers and they're, you know, international superstar. They, you know, it's like the 10,000 hours. The Beatles were playing for, you know, countless shows in little pubs before they got big. So without that proving ground, we're going to not have also the big stars that everyone knows.
Yeah, I think Billie Eilish was playing the same clubs as us like a few years ago, you know.
Like, if you think about it, if you want to support the arts, you need to support science, and vote for people that support science.
Yeah, that's the most helpful thing you can do if you want to hear us play music again.
Super real. Yeah. Well, that's the only way. Even Shira's saying, like, yeah, you had to take a rapid test to get into a thing. Like, that's a really cool idea to be like, yeah, you can come in this building, but we need to use science to be able to test you to see if you are going to be safe enough to be around other people.
Shira, I don't know if you still have a lot of friends or family in Canada, but have you gotten a sense of how it's going up there? I mean, have you talked to anybody up there?
From what my parents say, it's been handled a lot better. Their numbers are a lot lower than our numbers.
Testing's available.
And they're pretty strict about coming in and out and what you need to do that. So
yeah,
I don't know too many details, but yeah, I know that they've dealt with it a lot better than we have.
Yeah. Thank you guys for chatting about it and letting people know that we want them to go out and vote tomorrow. And we really hope to see you all in person very soon. everybody. We are here with quite the panel right now. We are so honored to have all of these gentlemen with us here. We have got Wayne Forte, founder of Entourage Talent. Hey, Wayne.
Okay, thank you.
We have Tom Chauncey, founder of Partisan Arts. How's it going, Tom?
I'm fine, thanks. Nice to see you guys.
And you guys are both members of NITO, which is the National Independent Talent Organization, which we'll be learning much more about today. And then we've got David Weingarden, VP of Concerts and Events at Z2 Entertainment.
Thanks for having me.
And you are a member of NIVA, National Independent Venue Association, which again we'll be learning about. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Pete Shapiro, venue owner, concert promoter, magazine publisher, entrepreneur. Pete, thank you so much for joining us here and lending us your time.
Good to be here. Thanks, Dave.
So to kick it off, Wayne, can you tell us about NITO and the work you guys are doing surrounding the Restart Act and extendpua.org?
Yes, of course. We came together. Well, we started talking. There was 14 original agencies that sort of came together and started having discussions, brought together really by Frank Riley of High Road Touring, just to sort of exchange ideas and update, things that were happening in the early days of the pandemic. And probably 2 or 3 weeks in, we had phone calls once a week for a few weeks. We decided that we should formalize our association. And so we began to put together what is now NITO, which is really an advocating group, and will remain going forward as an association for the independent live music community. Our members are mainly agents and managers. We started out with the 14 original, as I said, agencies. We expanded that immediately. We brought in managers as well. That's the mainstay of the organization, of the base. But we also have associate members that are everyone else other than promoters and venues, basically tour managers, roadies, publicists, anybody else in the live space that isn't spoken for. We're trying to advocate for all of them. The main things that we have been advocating, as you mentioned, are for the Save Our Stages Act, Restart, PUA, the HITS Act as well as another one, which is really mainly for artists and producers, I guess. And what we do literally on a daily basis, certainly weekly, but daily, we've got about, all told, and I'll let Tom jump in and finish. We do about 5 meetings a week. At one point we were at 6 or 7 a week, but we're easily doing 5 a week of different meetings, executive board meetings, board of directors meetings. The initial or original 14 formed the board of directors. We just brought in 2 management members because the board was really made up of agents to start with. We just brought in 2 management members to join the board. And we're working on these things, as I say, daily. After we finish today, we have an executive board meeting, and then we have a meeting with our lobbyists. So, Tom, jump in and take over for me.
Yeah, I think, Wayne, you kind of painted the picture well. I think I'd add that when COVID started and we all were forced to shut down, we saw what NIVA was doing, and it was impressive. They had really pulled together, a network of all the independent stages around the country to try and have a voice. And we had conversations with them early on to try and figure out, well, we share the same problem. We're all in the same business. We're all trying to figure out a way how we're going to get through this. And what we determined was that rather than join NIVA, because NIVA at that point was sort of just coming together and trying to figure out what they were doing and who they were trying to speak for, it was sort of determined that we'll run parallel with them for the most part, because while we typically share all the same problems, but we're different. We're agents and managers, and they're venues, and they've got a longer list of issues that we don't necessarily share. And this was a way for us to come together and have a voice. And ultimately, what we quickly learned was when we reached out for help, meaning to our politicians to try and put together some support for the industry, we learned real fast that DC doesn't understand our business. And most of the work we've been trying to do is just to point out the fact that, there's that artist on that stage. You go to a concert, it's a seamless experience for you for the most part. You're having a great time. You buy a ticket, you go in, see a show, you leave. You don't realize all of the people behind the house, behind the stage, they're involved in making that happen. All of the marketing and all the setup, et cetera, et cetera. And so that was a huge learning curve for DC. And I mean, I still feel like we're doing that every day still, but a lot of our energies have been going towards that. And I think the outcome of that is to show that the entertainment industry is vast. There's millions of people that are in this business that are connected to it. The ecosystem that from the buses and the trucks and the touring companies, the sound and the lights, et cetera, it's a huge number of millions of people. And we needed to tell that story. And so we've been working hard to do that. I'm happy that we've got a bill. Save Our Stages is in the next COVID language so far, which is hugely incredible, actually, when we first started this process. Now the next step, of course, is to get the next COVID bill, to get Save Our Stages, to come through, to figure out how that's going to be dispersed in an equitable way so people can survive, really. I can go on and on, but that's sort of the backstory of how we came together and what we've been focusing our energies on initially.
I think people can kind of wrap their heads around the needs of the artists, especially the ones that they kind of love, and which is all well and good. And I know they've definitely been impacted very hard, but I feel like a lot of people, not only just the people in government, but people in the general population don't really understand the amount of work that goes in behind the live production and each show that you see, and the economy that it generates. I think that it's almost like a multi-billion-dollar industry when it comes down to it, and I think a lot of people don't see or understand that. And I feel like you guys have done a really good job in kind of educating the general public about that. And do you see that as being an issue, is trying to educate people about what goes on behind, each show that we see?
Yeah, well, that, as Tom was saying, that was took a lot of energy, and we're still doing it because they still don't totally understand. First of all, we had to educate our lobbyists. We took on lobbyists. We interviewed 3 or 4 lobbying companies, outfits, organizations. We chose one, and we had to start out with educating them. Now that was fairly quick because it was 3 main contacts that we had, and our executive board of 6 or 7 people, talking to them one-on-one. So that was a little quick. But what we spent a great deal of time on was twofold. Advocating for the 2 bills, Restart and SOS mainly. And we started doing, 2 months ago maybe, one-on-ones with senators and or congressmen and or their staffs. In certain cases, we couldn't actually get the senators on the call, so we'd have their chief of staff. Tom and I did a few together. Frank Riley and I did a few together. Other people did some together. We didn't all do all of them, but we did one-on-ones. And I would say out of 6 or 7, and I don't have the numbers totally in front of me, maybe 8, we probably got, more than 50, probably 60 or 70% of them to turn around and sign on to the bill. They just had no idea what was going on. Like, they go to shows. I mean, some of them were actually music fans. They had no idea. Once you buy your ticket and you go and you see your show, they had no idea who we were, what we did. They didn't know the difference between us and a promoter, a manager and an agent. I mean, none of it. We had to explain it all so that they understood that there was this whole ecosystem out there. One goes down, they all go down. We lose some stages, we lose places to play. We lose some acts. The stages loses people, to bring in. The other thing that was really important, which Tom mentioned, was the difference between NIVA and NITO, just in the certain needs. The venues have mortgages and leases and long-term things. Now, we have our rent and our spaces and our staffs and stuff. They have staffs too. But we don't have that in-depth, cash, thing. Every month we got this huge check that, it's got to go to the bank. To keep the place open. But on the other hand, which we tried to get across to the representatives were, because they said, yeah, we understand. It's kind of like the restaurant business. And it was like, no, it's not. The clubs and the restaurants, you can say June 1, or let's say December 1, we're opening, and they're open. bring their staffs back, bring their, people, their servers, their cooks, start making food. Even if they're not at 100%, they can sell outside on the street. They can do takeout. They can do, deliveries. We can't. Like, there is no deliveries for us. There is no on the street. There is no takeout. And when they say go, we're open December 1, we need 6 months to a year to organize the tours to book them. We won't earn a dime in income as agents and managers and artists for 9 months to a year after go. That's a long runway. And that's something that, none of them understood that. That was something that we had to, it was enlightening. I remember one of the, Tom, you and I were on that call together. Was it Senator Kane, wasn't it, from Virginia, who was on the call, I think? And he was he was a music fan. He's got friends in the business. He's got friends that are in touring bands. It's interesting to talk to him, actually. And he said, wow, we really, I had no idea about that. I didn't think about that. I didn't consider it. So that was a big difference between, NITO and NIVA, so to speak.
I'll just add one thing on the educational piece of the conversation. Most of the time we focus on the economic side of this conversation because that's where people are hurting, right? And understandably so. But the other side of that piece of that conversation is the cultural impact that music has in America, what it represents to people. Obviously it's people derive happiness, they see concerts, there's a social network, but the potential loss to the cultural loss to the country by not supporting arts institutions and independent venues, it's hard to, you can't put a dollar amount on that, so it's a more challenging thing. It's a theoretical thing to be talking about, but it's huge. And what we can't have happen is we can't freeze, or we can't take steps back in terms of what artists are able to do. Most politicians think that all artists are successful and they're massive big names. But from what I've read, the average musician in this country earns $25,000 a year. It's not a superstar. Artists don't start in arenas. They don't start in stadiums. They start in small clubs. They work hard. Those are the people that we need to support because they have something to say and they shape our culture. And if we don't preserve that, we're going to lose something. And so that's another reason why I think we all came together to try and to shine a light on that, really.
Yeah, and it's amazing maybe I don't, it is mentioned in other places, but what I see on television and a lot of publications, they're talking about restaurants, they're talking about airlines, all these things, but music is such a deeply personal part of people's lives, and it's such a prime form of release and enjoyment for people that you'd think that this would be on their radar, whereas it's the last thing that's going to come back. And so the Save Our Stages Festival, David, it seems like that did a really good job of shining light on this, and you guys had some incredible acts on there. Can you tell us a little bit about putting that festival together?
Yeah, it was a great team that we had. There was probably 30 of us working within all different promoters and marketing people within the promoter department, some management folks and whatnot, all were really working together to put it, to make it work. It was a few months in the process. Plus we worked diligently with the YouTube team and Google team to make sure everything was just exactly perfect. And it was, it came off incredibly well. I mean, we definitely got the amount of high caliber acts that we had on there, plus all of their YouTube or all of their social media followers in general, like the Miley Cyruses of the world and Brittany Howard and whatnot. I mean, those were just massive, and they're still. I mean, I think Miley's concert has already been seen over 2-3 million times or something like that. So, and she did a ton of promo around it as well, as did a lot of the other acts too. So the more people that could put it out there, the better. And we were able to raise almost close to $2 million so far for the Emergency Relief Fund, which is falls under the auspices of NIVA, which is the National Independent Venue Alliance, which now holds which now has 3,000 venues throughout the United States, which is pretty amazing number. And so all these venues who are members of NIVA can actually go out, fill out and it's not a crazy application or anything like that, but they can go out for funding. And then it's all going to be based on, the severity of their financial distress. So, if a person's going to be, if a business is going to be going out within the next 30 days, that's going to be taking precedent over, the people that might have a little bit more in their cash reserves. So it's certainly helpful. And especially, there needed to be a stopgap, and we saw that things weren't necessarily working in the in government, and so we had to take matters into our own hand. And so that's certainly a help right now, but it's a Band-Aid, and it's not going to get really any better until we get the funding from the government to help us. And these acts, the Save Our Stages Act and the Restart Act for that matter, are going to be hugely beneficial for us, although we just don't know when that is actually going to be, when it's going to come through. So the Save Our Stages Act, it's much more, it's on the performing, the venues and the producers and the promoters and the production staff. So you can get a grant, which is going to be of up to about 45% of your 2019 income. And so you can utilize that for mortgages, electricity, because a lot of these venues like the Boulder Theater, which we own, sitting, it's a sizable place in the middle of downtown Boulder, which is a very expensive place. And, all these different venues have a lot, the overhead is tremendous. And so, and again, going back to what Wayne was saying and with Tom, it's like, we're just hemorrhaging money. And so the only way that we're going to have that stopgap is to be able to, utilize the Emergency Relief Fund or the Save Our Stages Act or the Restart Act to help us all. And it is one giant ecosystem, and we can open up the doors. We're not like that hardware store down the street, that can just close when it's, when there's some sort of lockdown and then open right back up the next day. We need time, as Wayne was saying.
Where are you guys at in terms of government assistance? I know you guys have hired lobbyists, and they've been, talking to different senators, but it seems like you've gotten some bipartisan support on it. And
definitely,
you guys have come,
We're still waiting to hear right now, right? There's a meeting going on right now.
Yeah.
That could have impact on that. It's really now up to the Secretary of Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, and Nancy Pelosi, who's the Speaker of the House. They're in a room literally, I think, as we're doing this. If it's going to happen soon, but, there's a big election coming that's going to dictate a lot of timing, I think.
What's pretty amazing, though, is that NIVA started, and NITO for that matter, started, in March. And, around the time of when everything got shut down. And the fact that we are even at the table right now as part of that discussion as Save Our Stages and whatnot is a real, it just shows you how people and cities and towns and whatnot need art and want art, music, and culture they want to save these stages. We sent the people from around the nation have sent over 2 million letters to Congress people stating that they wanted the help, that they wanted to help save the venues and help save the workers, within this ecosystem. And it's a tremendous, it's just been an amazing outpouring, for something like that to happen, for us to be around for 7 months and to have a line item within a bill that's getting discussed right now.
Yeah. And Pete, I was going to ask you, it sounds like, letting your representatives know and supporting these bills is important, but as a venue owner, are there other things that fans and people can do who want to advocate for their
Good
local
question.
venue? Yeah.
That's a great question. I think venues, and it's real, the impact of, if your local venues, you can go to their website, they're selling merch, buy it if you can, whatever you can afford. We did something at the Capitol Theater where we actually are selling tiles for a new entry where you can list your favorite show that you saw at the Cap. And we had amazing response to that. we're selling pins and shirts and hats, and we are actually opened a pop-up shop every Sunday under the marquee at the Capitol Theater, where we're selling old merch from the Cap and stuff. So I was playing acoustic guitar, and we started that to like just try one or two. And I just heard probably in our 8th one, we've been doing it for a couple months, or 7th one. This past weekend was our biggest one.
Wow.
You know, so we're
That's great.
We're trying to be innovative. We're doing a lot of stream, you know, we're trying to stream as much as we can, but it's not easy to even open the room, as the guys said, and Dave knows particularly well at the Boulder, bigger room are actually more tricky in some ways than smaller or are tricky. You know, plus the Cap's a local one room. So just to open doors for even a stream is tricky, but we're trying to do that as much as we can. Listen, the Save Our Stages thing is going to be huge. You know, we need it to happen soon. PPP helped everyone. It wasn't perfect, but I'd be dead without it, probably, you know, just dead in the water. Pretty soon I might be dead in the water without SOS, Save or something. And we've all been waiting, you know, like, hopefully it'll get voted. We're still waiting to hear. But if not, I do think this election on November 3rd, you know, knock on wood, has the potential to create a trajectory and a path for NITO and NIVA and Save Our Stages and all of us that shortly thereafter, hopefully, will help us on its way. And the way Save Our Stages is structured, it's really meaningful help. You know, it's nothing's perfect in life, but without it, I think it would be devastating. We will be a lot of venues, and the people like, you know, Tom and Wayne, what they do, without the agents representing artists, developing their careers, spending time to invest when the artist is small and doesn't play the Boulder Theater or the Capitol, but it's playing a local club. Both these guys work with bands that start, you know, really small and develop them. And if we lose the top agents, the agents, it's gonna screw up the whole flywheel, the whole path, right? Supporting the artist's work, because if an artist has to go book shows on their own, and Dave, you know about this with Turkuaz, it's like, it's a lot better to have a representative and a great day, and you need a manager to help you think it through. And it's a big ecosystem, and kudos to, you know, the ecosystem worked all together, you know, to get itself in a place where it sounds like even today, and this will run after the White House proposal, hopefully even contains SOS in it. Yeah. You know, what will pass, you know, so it's like if the Democrats win the Senate and the House and the presidency, maybe a restart becomes it, which is even beyond SOS, right, David? Like, but sounds like right now, you know, it's really, there is bipartisan support for the Save Our Stages Act and to support NIVA and NITO.
Well, I think too that when you start really drilling down into it and you're speaking to, because I've been on a few of those calls as well with the different representatives throughout Colorado, and when you really talk to them about not just the job losses, but the economic impact that, you know, not having these shows is having on the different communities, it's pretty tremendous. You know, the big study that came out of Chicago that we continue to use is that $1 spent on a ticket, you know, equals about $12 per ticket per which goes back into the local economy, you know, on restaurants and Lyft drivers and shops and whatnot, you know. So that's huge, you know, if you're taking all that money out of the community. And we just heard from the city of Boulder too, they actually think that it's around $26 for every time that there's a show that's happening at the Boulder Theater or the Fox. It brings in $26 per every dollar. I mean, that's huge. That's a massive amount. And when you're talking about that type,
you send me that.
Yeah, when you're talking about, I actually do have it. He wrote me that. And so when you're talking about that type of loss of tax revenue, of business loss as well, I mean, that's tremendous. You know, so we need to get everything back up and running again.
Yeah, I like that number. I want to start talking about $26 a dollar instead of $12. I'll follow that lead.
I mean, how dire is the situation? Are we looking at, I know a lot of agencies have already seen a ton of layoffs. I know a lot of venues have already closed. What can people, I know the situation is very dire and, we do have an election coming up, but what can people do and our viewers do to
Oh, you know what? I got one. You could buy a ticket. You can go to the Boulder Theater website or.
I agree.
Right? You can buy, if you see a show that's in, October 2021 postponed, you can still buy a ticket and show your support that you're going to go, whenever it's listed. That is, you can still buy the ticket, and that's a real way to support the venue. One of the best ways, probably. A lot of these shows have been postponed, not canceled. And, one good thing, we should probably transition so it doesn't get too morbid, because it's a lot of the hard work these guys have done, and everyone's done, because we are teed up to have, now we just need an election. Everyone needs to go vote also on November 3rd. And there's a clear way that, you can, if you really want to support your local venue and the whole ecosystem of agents and managers and barbacks and stagehands and technicians and bookers, I don't want to get too political on here, but there's a clear way to vote that way, and that's coming and really could have meaningful impact. But what I wanted to say is the sky ahead could be, once we get there, which is going to be a while, particularly indoor. We're talking indoor venues, not just outdoor, which is easier. But I think it's going to come back really big. And I think everyone who supported this, whether giving money in any different way or buying a ticket to a show or buying merch from a band, Tedeschi Trucks with Wayne, or, Jack Johnson with Tom, you can go buy band merch, but then go buy tickets to show. I think everyone's going to want to go see a lot of live music after missing it for what may be almost a year probably around. And so I'm ready for that part of this.
Yeah, I think whatever reticence there will be by some people to go back into those settings after a pandemic, there's going to be an equal amount, if not more, of just enthusiasm, because people are just going to be so eager to have that itch scratched again, and come out and see the music. And I know, we've basically taken our whole 2020 calendar as Turkuaz and moved it to 2021 with fingers crossed. And it's also not just about financial relief, but also about people adhering to health codes and trying to actually get this pandemic under control, because that's going to be that can make the difference between this taking another year, another 6 months, another year and a half, right? I mean, that's a big thing that we want to tell fans and music fans out there, that, that's complying with those health codes is going to get us back in business sooner.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because, right now, most of the conversation's been about the fact that the industry can't sustain itself, right? And so we've been talking about legislation that's going to help bridge to get to the other side, whatever that other side looks like. The question is, how quickly do we get to the other side, right? And that touches on the point you're making, which is, when do we get back? And I think the thing that we need to next start educating the public and our representatives is that in fact our business doesn't really work until social distancing is a thing of the past. Well, what does that mean? That means we need to figure out how to get rid of social distancing, right? So that conversation, the way I see it, is like the next. We should be having it now, but it's really the next thing we all need to be focusing on. We need to educate our audience, right? Like, fans need to know that it doesn't come back until you can go back to a show like we used to go back to a show. Let's get rid of social distancing. What's that process? Let's start talking about that. That's what I want to transition towards that.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people see the, certain venues having, socially distanced shows, drive-ins. And, I think, Pete, you were looking at maybe doing a lock-in that was socially distanced and had J-Rad down at the lock-in site. But, is that model even sustainable, or is it just something that we're doing to kind of help get people through, everything that's going on right now? I mean, I don't think the streams or the 50-person people in a 1,000-person venue is really sustaining, a lot of the business, both on the agency side, the manager side, the venue side. And I think there's a misconception that people see certain venues starting to open up a little bit and being like, oh, well, they'll be okay. But I don't really think that's the case, but I'll let you guys speak to that.
Yeah, it's just it's another Band-Aid basically. It's not. It really isn't sustainable, or it isn't at this point. Whether somebody can, create a scenario or enough of them where it becomes another business model, a separate business model, hasn't been done yet. People are mainly sustaining themselves, trying to keep, either some of their staff or many of their staff, ticking over, so to speak. And they're generating a certain amount of, income to cover that. But it's not, from the ones that I know about anyway, it's not overly sustainable.
They're digital dimes.
Yeah, exactly. And from the artist standpoint, and again, we may have to change the way we do business anyway going forward, because who knows what the end of this is going to look like, right? In reality. But a lot of the artists are either cutting their bands down and doing, short setups, or in another case, there's an artist that's doing solo without a band, and generating enough money that, it's sustainable to them at that point. But then again, that's not really what they want to do. That's not
right. Not for the bandmates that aren't playing.
Exactly. That's not helping the band and crew. It's just, generating some income. And there are some people that are actually doing some of those things to pay their band and crew. So it's not, again, it's not overly sustainable because they're not really making a profit, so to speak. They're just
Brandi Carlisle's doing a really good job at that right now.
Yeah, they're just passing it on. I know one of my clients, they're doing they did a stream last week. They're doing a pay stream. They're doing a pay stream this week, and the money's all going to the musicians and the crew. Whatever they generate.
Yeah, so, we for the shows that we're doing right now at the Boulder Theater, which we've done at less than 10% of the capacity right now. It's 100 cap. We're doing 25 tables of 4, and we're including 2 drinks into that with some food and everything. The demand is definitely there, and we're making a little bit of money. But when you take into account that we have the Fox Theater completely closed, the Aggie is just starting to open right now as well. I mean, we're keeping people working again, which is amazing, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing that. And we're giving music back to the community, and it's wonderful to see everybody there. But as far as like touching our overhead in any sense, like we're not even coming close. It's a really difficult situation.
It's a tough part of this is to decide like what to do, what to do and not do, and because even doing it, it's just not the same. We're focused a little more on streaming shows at the venue with no audience, because once you turn on the audience for us, it's just so complicated in New York. Each state has its own laws. New York's not even there. We can't even do it. But yeah, it's digital. Even when we do a stream and sell tickets, and it's worth doing. We are doing it. It's just smart. It's not like selling beer to a full room, and just the energy of the. But it is nice, I will say, to see a show. Trey's doing a great job at this at the Beacon Theater. We've done several of them. When you have full lights, full PA sound. When you see a band in a venue, there is a certain kick that you get, even if it's empty, than you get seeing someone in a living room, which was nice and worked in the beginning part of the pandemic. And I found some of these streams, actually Jack Johnson, the Kawoo, how do you pronounce, I don't know if I pronounced it right, but for Earth Day, he played, when you see an artist outside, some of these performances, one of the nice things, I guess, about this is to see these intimate moments sometimes of an artist. I think the living room aged out pretty quickly, but then, Kokua, like there were all these outdoor, beautiful, amazing performances in an hour, 90 minutes that you would not have seen that event. And I'm on the boards of different organizations like City Parks Foundation, which is Central Park Summer Stage in New York. We did a whole Summer Stage Jubilee, and you got to tell the story of the organization. New York Public Radio is about to do one in a way that you couldn't at the gala when it was just a concert at the venue. And people want to eat the chicken, watch the show, drink the liquor, and hang out and talk. So I would say that, some people are using this and some of the streams, in creative and innovative ways. And that's been nice. I think we're all getting about over it. But just to touch on one positive, like you have gotten a lot of focus from people to pay attention and watch, I think, performances in a way that they you don't just at a show, which has another magic all to it. But the intimacy has been nice, I think, in some ways.
Well, I think, to echo some of your points there, Pete, that we're learning something in this process. We're learning new ways to communicate and to message out, and I think when we're done with COVID and we're back to normal, we'll have different tools in our tool belt, and we may use them in a slightly different way. So there is something positive about that. But what I'd say to the interim stuff that we're doing right now, it's sort of like going from 3 meals a day to 3 meals a week. You're eating, but you're not eating enough to really sustain. And we need to figure out how to get back to like a real diet. 3 meals a day, come on, when is it going to start again? That's what we need.
Well said.
Who have been some of your biggest allies, in the government that's been helping out with these bills?
Well, I think the co-sponsors of the bills, like Senator Bennett and Corwin, I believe his name is, from Texas. That's a bipartisan bill right there on the Restart Act. And then Klobuchar.
Klobuchar. Yeah. I was going to ask.
It's on SOS, and I'm failing to
remember. John Cornyn.
It's with Cornyn, also Texas. Yep.
Cornyn.
Yeah.
Texas, yeah.
Peter Welch in Vermont has been supportive. He wrote the House version of the bill.
And Schumer's come on after it wasn't there.
And
first,
Schumer's been wonderful.
He's pushing strong now. It's going to be in. If any bill gets through here, it's going to be in, I think, or it'll just wait and happen after the election, which might then the problem there is we're going to have to wait a while, right? Because I don't know what'll happen in a lame duck.
Yeah, January 20 is more likely. Yeah.
No, but even right. And then it happens in the money. So that's really, I think, what a lot of people are talking about now is people may have to figure out, venue owners, and agents and managers, to make it till February, which is going to be hard.
Yeah. Very.
Well, we hope they pass something soon that includes SOS and, again, we just want to urge people to do your research on the candidates, even on the local level, who is supporting these things, who is taking the music industry into account for all of our sakes, and definitely get out there and vote. I think it will make a difference to see how, and how this all plays out.
Yeah. The other thing they can do, even though it's, sort of late in the day, but never too late, is if they haven't written a letter or if they haven't communicated with their congressperson or their senator, they can go on to either the two sites, NIVA or NITO, go to the action page. They've got one, we've got one. The letter's already set up. It takes you about less than 5 minutes to do it. If you want to write your own letter, you can do that too, or you can use the form one and just let them know what, as a fan and as a local person, what you feel. The more, the better. Even though there's, 1 million or 2 million letters or whatever that have already been written, there's never too many. They react to it as long as they're constituents. I mean, one of the things we did learn right away is if Tom and I want to try to excite somebody in Virginia, which we did, but we were hosts, you have to have your constituents there. So we had, a manager and we had an artist and, that were constituents that lived in Virginia. And it's a process, because just having the one phone call didn't do it. I must have had 3 or 4 or 5 follow-up emails after that. Each one of them, not just there. I did one in Connecticut. We did the Virginia one. We did 2 there together. I did one with Frank in North Carolina. There was, other of our people did, Louisiana. They did South Carolina. They did Maryland. So, we've done quite a few. Colorado. You got to follow through. Now, we're not asking all the individual fans to do that. That would be great if they did. But, they just to get them to think about it, or at least the people that we've contacted between NIVA and NITO, let them know that there's support out there, from the public. Like, it's not just us talking, there is support, there's a lot of support. And they'll eventually come around. I think they'll come around. They'll understand that there's a need for it. There's a demand for it. And as Tom said, it's about arts and culture. And unfortunately, not everybody focuses on that. They focus on the economics. and the economy, and I mean, in one case, for instance, in Virginia, and I don't want to belabor the point, but one of the senators, might have been Kane's office, I can't remember offhand, was communicating with the chief of staff back and forth, and I got an email saying, can you give us a list of the top 10 venues, not arenas, but the top 10 theater club venues in Virginia? So I guess, you shouldn't assume that the guy knows or the woman knows what the venues that are going to be at risk are. So I put together a list, and I contacted someone from Kunj Shah's office who was on the call with Tom and I when we had the calls. And I just let them know that I was communicating about this. I sent the top 10 that I could think of. And then they sent me a list of about 150, and I forwarded that. And I said, here's who's at risk. And I think they probably bowled them over. I don't think they thought about it. Oh, really? There's that many, yeah, of course there are, but they didn't think about it. I think that's what they just need the information. They are representatives, but they don't necessarily know everything. I don't think they know, every auto body shop in the state either, when that becomes a problem. So anyway, it's just really getting to them and giving them the input and the information. That's what's important. They are our representatives. We just have to use them.
Agreed. Well, thank you guys so much. Love to do this again in the future, and once we see how things unfold over the next
several months. Do it in a few months when we're planning what Tom was talking about. how we're all planning on reopening.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. Thank you guys yet again. Really, really appreciate you spending the time with us here.
Thank you guys.
Thanks everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Kunj. Thanks, Dave.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.
All right, everybody. I am here with Clyde and Gracie Lawrence from the amazing band Lawrence. Thank you guys so much for joining me here.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And you guys have a live album out right now that I've been checking out. It's absolutely incredible. And there's some videos to go along with that, one of which we're going to play in just a few minutes. But how are you guys feeling during this pandemic? It's been rough on all of us live performers, obviously. And I know I'm forgetting what it feels like to play music with other people in the same room. And so I can imagine you guys.
Yeah. I mean, we miss playing live shows a lot. We were literally on tour, as so many bands were, when this all went down, and we had to cancel a tour right in the middle, or postpone the remainder of a tour right in the middle of it and just fly home. Yep. And, I think we've been trying to find a lot of different ways to keep the momentum going. But we really do miss playing shows, and it has been somewhat cathartic having one of the main projects that we've been working on over the last few months be putting together this live album, which involves combing through all this audio where you can hear the crowds at these shows, and being able to put out that and have so many fans' reactions be like, ugh, like, this makes me miss shows, and like, hopefully it doesn't make people feel worse about the pandemic, but maybe just makes people feel more like excited for and enthusiastic about finding a road back as soon as possible.
Yeah, I guess it could be a double-edged sword in that way. Like it's nice to hear that roar of the crowd and that live energy, and it reminds you like, oh yeah, that's like what I'm supposed to be doing all the time. Yeah. But then you remember like, oh damn, like it might be a little while. Gracie, what have you been? I mean, both of you guys really, but have you been like writing, taking the time to try to focus on other things, or?
Yeah, I think we've made pretty good use of this time. When we're on the road, it's so active and there's so much going on, and so I think we've really taken the time to write a lot of Lawrence stuff, write a lot of non-Lawrence stuff.
Yeah.
Be creative in a lot of capacities in ways that I think, a lot of creative people talk about wanting to have the time to do, wanting to be able to work on this project, or I had this idea, but of course when we're on the road and we're doing all these things, you don't have
no time.
You never force yourself to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that there is that silver lining. I mean, I obviously miss the road and just like getting on stage every night, but I think there is that silver lining of trying new things out.
I think that it's like to a point. I think it's like, I think when we got back and like the reality of this set in, I think that Gracie and I were both like trying to make the most of it and see the best of like, okay, let's be realistic. Like, we're probably not going to play anymore this year. And so like coming up with a set of content for Lawrence and creative projects that could like sustain Lawrence's momentum and our own like creative fulfillment. And I think like we've done, I think, a good job of that, but like the longer that it goes on, the harder and harder it is to continue to, certainly we will never run out of creative projects for us to work on, but like in terms of like just maintaining the momentum of a touring focused band without touring, is something you can do for a certain amount of time, but at some point you're going to start to like really just need that major part of your business back.
Yeah, and especially with large bands, which we both have.
It's a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of like people's schedules to like, keep full for sure, 100%.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the beginning of this whole thing, I had a solo record that was very, very different music from Turkuaz that I'd been basically working on for about 10 years that, when it first happened, I was like, this is terrible. We were about to do the biggest tour we've ever done. Then I tried to just say, all right, well, this is the time to get all those other projects done. And I'm working on Josh from my band's solo record. I finished mine, a bunch of Turkuaz stuff that's in the can now, and it's kind of ready to go. But it's like, you also kind of need to tour to promote those releases at a certain point. So might just be sitting on them for a while now, but I'm trying to keep looking on the bright side, but I really do hope that we get this pandemic under control soon, because it's for how much of an important part of people's lives music is. I wish I heard it talked about a little bit more. When I turn on the news and hear about relief, I'm not really hearing a lot about musicians, but like we're going to be the last thing to come back.
Literally the last. Yeah, I remember like I've seen so many of these articles that are like, we talked to XYZ doctor about like realistically when we can expect these different aspects of life to come back to normal. And it's like eating in restaurants, like walking around without masks on in open air, like, seeing family and friends, like blah, blah, blah. And then it's just like bars. And then it's like 2 years later, like live sporting events even before music, if it's like outdoor stadiums. Yeah, it's like literally the last thing. It's
and it's not talked about. Like it's such a huge part of people's life. Like even just major artists and like those bigger venues where you're going to have tens of thousands of people packed in, like that's going to be so long until that happens, unless something drastic happens and a vaccine comes and almost everybody takes it, or 75% of people take it and it's effective. Still there's going to be a bit of a delay. There might be just some reticence for people to come out again.
I think that's like, that's what I'm thinking about, is like, even once everyone's taken the vaccine, like so much of the energy at our shows, and I know at yours as well, is just that sort of like unbridled, let your guard down, like yell in people's faces, dance around, like have a drink, just like
lots of particles
happening. I think like
particle heavy entertainment.
I was watching this interview with Fauci, and he was like, yeah, if all goes well and the vaccine can get really widely distributed in like the early to middle part of next year, and then everyone can kind of take it, I think like life can more or less go back to normal, like, towards the end of next year. And I was like, okay, like that's all right. And then the interviewer was like, And so, like, that means, like, no masks and no whatever. And he's like, well, people will still probably want to wear a mask inside. And I was like, all right, well, that doesn't count because, like, there's not going to be a Lawrence show with like 1,000 masked people. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't really work.
I felt the same about the drive-in shows where people have to, like, stay in their cars. We got offered to do a bunch of those. And I'm just like, man, that's not what I want the first Turkuaz show people see for 8 months to be, you know? It's like, that's not really... we want to come back the right way and have the full experience, but we'll see, we'll see how it unfolds. So tell us a little bit more about this live record.
Yeah, I mean, it's compiled from 3 shows. We, at the beginning of this quarantine, were just like sitting on so much recorded material from our live tours. Mm-hmm. And these are from 3 fairly recent shows, 2 of which we did LA and San Francisco and New York show, and LA and San Francisco were literally like the week before
March 6th and 7th. Yeah.
Wow.
We're so naive in it.
Yeah, Gracie crowd surfs in the San Francisco Fillmore audio, and we're like listening to it listening to her like crowd surfing and video of it, and we're like, oof, that can't be a COVID good thing.
I know.
Hey, you know what? We learned a lot in those like 5 days after that. Yeah. I think everybody forgives you. I think that's okay.
So it's recordings compiled from those shows. The album's called The Live Album Part 1 because there will be a live album Part 2 because we just had so much material. And it feels very nostalgic when you listen to it. We kept a lot of the crowd noise in there so you can hear what the energy of those shows sounds like.
And there's a lot. I listened. It's very exciting to hear that. All right, so we're going to be watching the first, this is video of the first track on the live album, Part 1. Without any further ado, here it is.
Ready? It's gonna be alright. What? It's gonna be alright. Oh, it's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. Oh, it's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. It is gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. Oh, it's gonna be alright. Oh, it's gonna be
All right, now we are joined by Mr. Ivan Neville, who, of course, is a solo artist and has worked with too many artists to name, but Bonnie Raitt, Spin Doctors, Keith Richards, the Rolling Stones, to name a few. Of course, you may know him more recently from his incredible band Dumpstaphunk. Thank you, Ivan, for taking the time to join us. I see you've been quite busy lately.
Thanks for inviting me, brother.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we are also joined by Gregg Gonsalves, Assistant Professor of Epidemiology, Associate Professor of Law at Yale Law School, Co-Director of Global Health Justice Partnership, Co-Director of Collaboration for Research Integrity and Transparency. Thank you so much, Gregg, for joining us.
Happy to be here.
And today we're going to be talking, things largely surrounding the pandemic and some of the specifics of it. And Ivan, I understand we talked about this once before, but you actually had COVID several months back, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And you were down in New Orleans?
Yes. Actually, I think I contracted the COVID in New York. I was at an event in New York, and a bunch of people that were there ended up having it. And that was around March, to be exact, March 10th, 11th, and 12th. I was there.
Right at the.
And that was when it just kind of got real. And
did you go back to New Orleans right after?
I went to New Orleans that Friday.
Oh my God! Thank God I didn't see you. I was down there Friday, Saturday.
Well, good for you.
Well, it was nice to see you as long as you were.
No. Hey,
well,
I'm glad too.
Me and Ivan were actually together early March in Turks and Caicos. We just
right before
both of our families.
And I was, dude, what, going home through that airport, the little airport in
we were stuck like
it was so scary. It was like I was thinking, this is like a petri dish, a petri dish. I'm like, what is going on? It was packed out, and it just looked kind of germy.
You had your son with you. I had my nephew with me.
Yes.
My nephew got the worst cold he's ever gotten in his life, and my dad. And we were a little bit nervous. That was definitely the last trip anyone could.
We ended up pretty safe from that particular little travel, but after that, I went to New York against advice.
Well, what show was that?
Let's just say it was a show that was at the Beacon Theater. It was going to be a show that was going to have maybe 3,000 people. How many people does the Beacon hold? 3,000, 3,500, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, it was going to be that. And while we were there, I also did a foolish thing. I went to Madison Square Garden on the first night. I was off, and I saw that probably the last concert, and many of us were. It was the brothers, the Allman Brothers configuration with O'Teal and all those guys. O'Teal ended up being sick as well. I went to that. And then the show that was supposed to be attended by 3,000 people, the night before the show, we were all in the hotel lobby, in the bar. Everybody was staying at this cool little spot. And then I was looking at my phone, and I got the notification that the NBA was shutting down.
Oof.
That night. So we knew something, this is going down, this is getting really real. And everybody was like, oh, wow. And so then they turned what was going to be a 3,000 person event. They turned it into a streaming event, which is close family and friends. Maybe 300-400 people were there to watch the show. The show went on. And then after the fact, some people that were working on the show, some crew, more famously, Jackson Browne was there, and he soon thereafter announced that he had it. And Larry Campbell, myself, I think Paul Schaefer. And funny thing was that I guess my claim to fame for catching the COVID was I played the same piano that Jackson Browne played. So I don't know. Other people played it and didn't catch it. So,
yeah. But and then we had a festival, Brooklyn Comes Alive. I think you were going to play after that. And the venue wouldn't refund people for COVID. Oy. So I actually called my local congressman and ratted out my own festival. I was like, you need to shut this down. And, you know, before that, they were going to intervene, but then eventually Cuomo had just put a blanket ban on all events.
Well, let's ask a question that's on all of our minds, musicians and music fans. It's probably the number one pandemic-related question that people want to know from this perspective is, Gregg, in your understanding of the situation, when do you think the soonest that concerts, I'm going to stick with concerts because sporting events are kind of different, but concerts in the typical sense will be, back the way they were without restrictions. Do you see that happening within a year based on, what you're seeing and what you're hearing, vaccine? What are your thoughts on that?
So there are about 70,000 new cases of COVID on Friday, cases diagnosed. So starting to rival what we saw in March. So we're seeing like whether it's a wave or it's 3 peaks of the same wave, whatever, it just keeps getting worse. And so this winter is going to be really a bit of a nightmare because we're all going indoors. It's flu season. People are tired of this crap and letting down their guard. And so the winter is going to be a little bit of chaos. So I don't see sort of normal human activity resuming over the next few months. It's hard to tell what's going to happen. And projecting out a year, 2 years is hard, but I think this is going to be at least into the first half of 2021 that we're going to be having these restrictions. Hopefully in January we have a new president and we get to, scale up testing, put all these mask requirements in place. We said everybody has to get their ventilation of their theaters in shape. All this stuff gets to happen. But we basically spent 6 to 8 months sitting on our hands in the US. So we're in trouble. And so normal life, including concerts, maybe towards the end of 2021, it's not something anybody wants to hear. But, indoor events with a lot of people, it's going to be hard to do.
Well, they're doing them, right? I mean, they're doing them as campaign rallies. So
yeah, well, I mean,
who's that?
I'm not going to that. Otherwise, it's a super spreader event. Outside is different. Outside, you can, as the weather gets nicer in the spring, or if you're in California or someplace else, you could conceivably seeing, outdoor concerts with people spaced apart.
Yeah.
But outdoor amphitheaters where people are still sitting on top of each other without masks, not so much.
That's crazy. And what's funny is that that a lot of people are pretty angry with the mayor of New Orleans because I think our percentage, our positivity percentage is pretty down where it needs to be, but she still won't completely open stuff up. And she still got it. We were at a 3.2, phase 3.2, where things are kind of opening up a little bit, but she won't allow certain aspects of live entertainment. And for good reasons, because, and first of all, and also when people start drinking, they loosen up, and some of these people are already kind of crazy and not behaving properly anyway. Get a few drinks in them, that's New Orleans. People, and so they're maintaining a certain aspect of being shut down, and people are getting angry about it. But you can't have like horn players playing like in an indoor space. That stuff's, imagine the 6 feet thing, right, Doc? You know, and you got horn players with this stuff spewing out. So you got singing. You'd have to have plexiglass and things like that in place, and the air filtration systems that need to be. Those things are expensive. I did a recording session in August that was for music for a film, and they had it, but it was done by Netflix, so they had money, and they had us. They had a doctor there twice a week. They had nurses that were there every day. They had air systems in every room where they would have us, like, it was some tight protocol. And there was maybe 30 or 40 of us on the job, and their goal was to get through this job without anyone getting sick, and no one got sick. One person gets sick, the job shut down.
Yeah.
So no one got sick, but they had these air filtration systems in every room, and we were only allowed so many in a room at a time, all this stuff. We were there for 6 weeks, and we were in a semi-bubble, similar on a much smaller scale, but similar to the NBA. We weren't allowed to go and really see anyone, go to our hotel, which no one was staying there but us, and to the studio. And it was very strict, and sometimes it seemed a little overboard, but it was necessary. And I'm glad we did it like that. We made it through this job.
So I have two questions. One is for Ivan, real quick. What are you working on in a little bubble in Netflix?
Well, I can't exactly tell you, but
we'd have to kill you.
No, we were doing music for a film.
Okay, so
this was in the works. We were planning to do this right after Jazz Fest. That's what the original schedule was. And then when the pandemic and everything happened, this was still on the table as something that we were hoping to try and do. But obviously, we knew it was possible that it wasn't going to happen. But they were able to put the things into place to make it happen, and they planned it. We ended up doing it in August instead of May.
I think like Kevin Hart did something like that also, but I think there's just so much misinformation out there about how the virus is spread. My understanding was, that the virus is spread usually indoors, not outdoors. And when it's like 10 to 15 minutes worth of direct contact. And I would just love to hear from somebody, how is it getting from, patient A to patient B, not all in all circumstances, but the majority of circumstances? Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? Is it prolonged exposure? Is it respiratory? Is it surfaces? I still wash my hands 50 times a day and, wash my groceries, but now I'm hearing that's not even something that you're supposed to be doing.
So as we're speaking, if we could make our spit and stuff fluorescent, it'd be all over your monitor, right? You've seen those things, those animations when people sneeze and stuff goes across the room. But even little talking, stuff gets spewed out of your mouth, little droplets.
Smoking, you see it.
Yeah, but just this conversation, if it was in person, and you did it under black light or something, you would see that basically the entire, if we were at a table together, we'd be covered in each other's little droplets. And that's where the virus gets transmitted through droplets. The reason indoors is bad is because you're not outside with the wind blowing things around, right? The reason you don't want to be sitting, as Ivan said, on top of each other in a little airport is because very easy for me to breathe on you and droplets from me to get on you. And if I'm carrying the virus, you're going to get infected. Look, is it 6 feet? Is it 12 feet? Is it 15 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? It's all on a continuum, right? If you're outside on a nice day, and you're 6 feet apart, a lot better than being indoors on a nice day, 6 feet apart. The point is, it's all about minimizing risk. So where we're seeing cases be spread right now are in small gatherings, small family gatherings, social gatherings. mostly because people are like, oh, I know him, or it's my mom, or whatever. I'm taking off the mask, and this is what's happening. And so people are sort of, instead of sort of hanging out with their significant other or their closest family, they're sort of opening up their social circles. And as you open up your social circle, you don't know who else that person had seen earlier that day, and all of a sudden you have this chain of infection that leads back to you. So think of this. Think of being outdoors in a park on a nice day, probably not so much risk. Although if you're huddled together in a big group, not so good. Indoors, windows closed, worst thing you could do, particularly without masks. I've been doing a lot of stuff around jails and prisons. If you're walking from a cell out to the yard, for instance, and you just pass by another inmate, you don't have your mask on, that could easily pass the virus. Same thing like, if you go down into the subway in New York, for instance, yes, prolonged close contact is probably the worst. Incidental contact outside, not so much. That's the whole reason everybody's saying wear masks inside, because incidental contact with a mask, you're not going to be spewing any of the stuff out of your mouth or your nose, whatever. It's not going to protect you, but that's why you want everybody around you to be wearing masks too.
Oh, yeah.
And this has been politicized quite a bit, to some degree on both sides. But I do wonder, has the U.S.'s response been, when you adjust for population, has it been very, very different from, other than, I know the extreme best cases, I think, what was it, Singapore and another country had just absolutely exceptional ways of dealing with it and pretty much knocked it right out. But do you think we're on par with a lot of European nations, let's say, other Asian countries, or do you think that we've had a particularly bad way of dealing with it or lack of organization surrounding it?
Well, it's a complicated story. We've had it really bad. We've been one of the worst, right? And it's because the president doesn't think it's a big deal. And he knows it's a big deal because we know that from that interview with
Bob Woodward, yeah.
Yeah, we know from Bob Woodward that he knew that it's serious, but they haven't really done anything. Republican or Democrat, all the ones in the past that I can think of during my lifetime would have swung into action and done anything. So we haven't had scale up of tests. We haven't had, if they should be sending out masks every household. They should be, thinking about like how to spend money locally and state level to fix ventilation, to if you want to get back into clubs and into theaters and hear live music, it's going to take money, right? And they could say this is like, the New Deal. We're going to do a works progress administration and retrofit all public buildings, or we're going to have 6 gazillion tests. So like the Netflix experience that Ivan had could be like the experience for school kids. So we've had a pretty bad experience. That being said, we were perfectly primed to have a terrible experience because we have a crappy healthcare system, right? Remember how many people are uninsured, how many people lost their jobs and lost their insurance. And then think of the social safety net, right? It's like a lot of these European countries, if you got out of work, you knew you had a place to live, you knew you had ability to put food on the table. Here, people sort of just fell into poverty and into homelessness, as they fell into unemployment. So it's not just the response to the virus that was terrible, it's the whole sort of health system, social safety net system, which makes us, made us terribly prepared for this when it arrived.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm just going to chime in about because when I figured that I had it, and that's another problem, that too many people who I think if you have any inkling that you have it, you should assume that you have it, and that's what I did. And then I talked to two or three different doctors. And it was early on, and nobody knew a whole lot. They still don't know some stuff. They know a little more, but not, as much as we would like the medical professionals to know. But at that time, but I was talking to this one guy, and I went to get tested twice, got turned down, right? So that's the first problem. And then because my symptoms weren't severe enough to the naked eye, but I went and I had fever upwards of 103. Couple times, 102.9. I had no appetite. I went to get tested. My temperature was 98.7. So they said, oh, you don't have a fever. I wasn't coughing up a lung, and I didn't look drastically bad. So they said, we're not testing you. This happened to me twice during the first week. So I started displaying symptoms on March the 15th. I went to an urgent care friend, a doctor, and I ended up I took influenza test, A and B, so that was ruled that out. I didn't have the flu. And the same doctor we talked about, he said, well, you know what, you should just assume you have it. I said, that's how I'm living. I'm in the back room of my house, trying to be isolated and all of that stuff. I wasn't going anywhere except I drove myself to the doctor, to the test place. I ended up I got a doctor friend of a friend who my oxygen levels were low. My lady had an oximeter.
Yeah.
Big. And so my oxygen levels were going down in the 70s or something like that, like bad. Wow. And she was freaking out. I was like, I didn't even know what she was talking about. I'm like, what do you mean? You need to go to telling me I probably need to go to the doctor, to the hospital. I didn't go. I ended up going finally. I got tested finally on March 23rd. I got tested. And then I went to an ER through a friend of a friend, an ER doctor hooked me up with an oxygen tank. And I went there. While I was there, I stayed there for a couple of hours. They did x-rays and I had double pneumonia. I had pneumonia in both lungs. Now, I wasn't, other than the fever and feeling like I had the worst flu I could ever imagine, wanting to just be in the fetal position in bed, couldn't eat. But I was able to drive myself to the hospital. They did that. They gave me an oxygen tank. I went back home. So I had this oxygen tank. They then delivered an oxygen machine in my house called Even Flow. One of those blue things, a blue box you plug into the wall. So I had that at home. So that was major. I didn't have to be in a hospital. Well, who knows, maybe they would have put me on a ventilator or something at some point. They did not. I had that at my house. Finally, on April the 2nd, I finally got the test results back. I was positive, as was others in my household who had tested positive as well. We had it. My lady didn't have the drastic symptoms like I did. She had symptoms, but I was feeling like such crap that I didn't even really notice how sick she was. But she took care of the household and we got through it. But I had that oxygen machine. And the time it took for me to get the results from March 23rd to April 2nd. But see, I'm not running around saying, well, I don't know if I got it yet or not. You know what? I'm going to act like I have it. I'm going to stay my mind home.
No, but
and get through it.
Yeah.
Not enough people. Go ahead, Doc.
No, you should have been able to get the test like that.
Yeah, and I was not. I tried twice and I didn't. I finally got the test. Now I'm assuming, and then I had pneumonia and all this stuff. But luckily I had this oxygen machine that helped me ride me through it. Fever went away from taking Tylenol and taking lots of vitamin D3, lots of zinc, lots of vitamin C, drinking lots of water. When I was feeling good enough, I started taking showers. The steam factor was helping me. I was doing all kinds of little homeopathic little stuff people told me about. And I started feeling better. I got an appetite, but then I got a shortness of breath out of nowhere. I took a deep breath and it felt like, oh, what is this? So I basically didn't know what to do, and no one knew what to tell me what to do. But I just kept using the oxygen, and I felt good enough to go outside, and I started taking walks. I started doing breathing exercises, and then gradually, day by day, my lungs felt better and better. But I was doing the streaming shows. I started singing, and it would wear me out. I would sing for an hour, and I would be exhausted. But the singing helped me too. It helped work my lungs back to feel like they're supposed to work. And I got through it. I was tested again on May the 1st. And then it came back negative, May the 5th. And that was the most frightening, 6 weeks or so. I was so scared at times. And then the unknown factor. And then when the breathing thing, I didn't have fever anymore, and I wasn't feeling as bad, but now I'm having a hard time breathing. I take a deep breath. I'm like, what the hell is that?
Even now, no.
No, even now, every now and again, I'll take a breath and it seems slightly labored. It just reminds me that I had it. It's something that I may, it may be with me for a while.
Well, people have long COVID. They have long-term complications. Not everybody.
Well, I was going to ask about that. My wife's parents had gotten COVID, and once my father-in-law had gotten COVID, they wouldn't even bother testing my mother-in-law because they just assumed that she had it. And this was early on as well. And, they're experiencing things like hair loss. And I was wondering if you've seen studies about the long-term, not to scare hyphen or anything, but the long-term effects of what we're seeing with the virus. Has there been anything coming out besides the hair?
Yeah, I mean, no. I mean, look, it's not everybody's going to get it, but long-term lung damage can happen. There's neurological stuff, brain stuff. All this stuff happens.
Heart too, right?
Heart stuff too. So the idea that it's just the flu doesn't do that stuff. And
Right.
So I mean, some people have mild cases, some people may not even know they have it. That's the big thing. 30 to 40, 50% be walking around fine and have it. Right. And then there'll be a small proportion of people who get deathly ill and die. And then there's going to be people who recover, but have long-term consequences. And, this is what makes it such a nasty disease.
Do you think there was an impact from Trump dismantling our early global early warning system? Did that impact our handling of the pandemic? And would it have helped if that was in place? Or
so if you're going to stop this, you got to know where it is and who has it, right? And if we can test widely throughout the community, we'll know where the pockets of it are. And then we do what Ivan did. We say, stay home, go to a separate room in your house and stay home. If you're very sick, you call an ambulance and somebody can come and get you. But if we know where it's like, I'm in Connecticut. We have very low rates. They're starting to go up. But the idea is they heard that there were a bunch of cases in Danbury up the road from me in New Haven. They sent a team out there to test everybody, to contact trace, and they're trying to sort of figure out who has it, get them tested. Who did they talk to? Who did they see over the past 14 days? Test them, see who, so that's the whole idea about disease control. You got to know where it is, who has it in order to stop it. Without these, if Ivan had to wait 2 weeks for a test, it's useless, right? I mean, he finally finds out that he has COVID, but, but he already assumed that he had it, right?
Yeah, that was, you were responsible, Ivan. You actually acted as if you had.
Well, I felt something in my body as well.
Yeah, but you could have said, "Oh, it's a cold, it's the flu." But a lot of people who need to get tested don't get tested.
Yeah, that's a shame. That's a shame of it. Really, it's really bad.
So you think instead of the lockdowns, if everybody in the country just got tested, if you were positive, you stayed home. Because this lockdown has become so prolonged, and it's not even a real lockdown. If we had just done it for real for 6 weeks and it had been done, but the way things are going right now, with it just being a half measure, do you think our medical and our medical society can take another year of this half-assed lockdown, or is it going to be detrimental to people's lives and livelihoods if we keep going, halfway?
Well, look, I just saw an article in the paper today. China's economy is booming, right? China's economy is booming. The point is, if we had done this right from the start, we would not be having this conversation right now. The president, not to get on his case, but he has consistently never done the right thing. He even has people telling him, let people get infected, they'll get herd immunity, blah, 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 blah. The point is that it's not just a pandemic you have to worry about. It's about kids not getting immunizations, kids not going to school. The point is, we need to figure out how to deal with the pandemic and all the other things around it. But that means we're going to have to sort of figure it out. And it's also, everybody seems like they're treating this like it's a 2-week interruption. This is, none of us are old enough to have lived through World War I or World War II, this is like a world historical event, right? And the idea that it's Friday, I got to go back to work. the point is, this is going to be, there's going to be a before COVID and an after COVID point in our lives.
Yeah, wow.
Music is going to be different. Healthcare is going to be different. Schools and universities are going to be different. Our lives are going to be different. And we're going to have to figure out how to adapt. And we don't want to like throw people overboard, right? It's like, you want to make sure that you keep people healthy and alive, whether they have COVID or they have cancer or whatever. Everybody needs to get their health care. Everybody needs to get their education. So we're going to have to figure out how to adapt. And it means we got to have better leadership to tell us, like, how do we do this in the safest, most efficient way possible, rather than like crazy person,
The CDC, Center for Disease Control, and the World Health Organization have also been learning as they go, and they have not been perfect. I think you'd probably agree. But I did just hear that Trump announced that you have to give 1 year's notice, but that he told the World Health Organization that the United States is going to leave, no longer contribute to the World Health Organization. Do you think that they are at such fault for the way that they've been, or
hey, Gregg, doctor, sir, before you get into your expertise, your expert side of this, answering this question from the knowledge that you have, I just want to say how funny and stupid that it's just like anything else that can destroy you. These things don't discriminate. That's what just blows my mind. Just because if like drug addiction and things of that nature, they don't care who you are. They don't care where you go to school. They don't care where you come from, how much money you got, who you vote for. They do that. Those things don't care. So it's not a black thing, a white thing, yellow, brown. It's none of these. If it gets in your body, it will take your behind out possibly. They don't care. And that, to me, is the best. Like, how can you tackle something like this in such a divisive way? That's, to me, is what's pathetic about how we're handling it. Everybody can get sick. Anybody can. So just because I'm gonna leave it there.
So, like, it's not rocket science. China, New Zealand, it's like, the virus does discriminate. If you're in a predominantly African-American county.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for
the circumstances. It's the circumstances.
Yeah.
So like African-Americans and Latinos have been harder hit by COVID, but now look where COVID's going. North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin. Yeah. It's going to the rural white areas. So like in the end, it's going all over the country. And leaving the World Health Organization, stupid. Interfering with CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and the National Institutes of Health and Food and Drug Administration, stupid.
Even if they get things wrong, right? It's they're trying. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face in a way.
Well, also, is the information coming from the CDC? Isn't that now all going directly to the White House? So do we even trust the data that's coming?
Well, but that's I spent most of my time like in the 80s and 90s fighting HIV and getting arrested and like criticizing the government. And so like, I get it. Like, the government needs to come in for some criticism, but in general, like CDC should be front and center in the response to this pandemic. And they've basically been muzzled. And said, they put somebody in the White House in the director's office and they keep a tight leash on him. And so
you used to work with Deborah Bricks as well, right?
I didn't work with Debbie, but I know Debbie. But like I was an activist; she was a government scientist. But like Trump appointed some bad people to advise him, so that tell him what he wants to hear. Fauci, I've known for a long time, and I trust him. I think he's trying to do the right thing. He's not being cowed by what he's being told by the White House. But it's just like we shouldn't be in this place, right? We should not be in this place where like we're having this conversation about like, there's going to be 400,000 dead by the end of the winter.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice talking to y'all.
Thanks, Ivan.
All right, Greg. All right, Kunj, Dave.
Bye,
all right, y'all. Good talking to y'all.
All right, right, everyone, that's a wrap for now. Thank you so much to everybody who has watched these last 6 episodes, to all of our guests. We really appreciate it. We look forward to doing more of these again in the future. And we're going to leave you here with some music. This is Neal Francis covering a Parliament song, Come In Out of the Rain. And if you haven't checked out Neal Francis's album Changes from last year, please do. It's really incredible. So we'll leave you with this, going out with some music. So peace, everybody. Go vote tomorrow. And we love you. Keep your mind in tune.
Change. No one's got sense enough to come in.